Hi everyone, this is audap. Hey, let's go back and take a look at Raging Loop again. I do see that in the comments, the very last episode of this game had a lot of technical difficulties, and so it might have been hard to follow the whole ending of this game. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to redo this ending now that I think all of the technical issues are done. But this game's ending is very long. It's like over 3 hours long to do it. So what I'll try to do is I'll try to break this up into smaller sessions so that it's not a whole 3 hour sit down. Not, I know most of my audience watches the playlists or they just watch it and pause it, which is a good thing about these live broadcasts is that you can go back and watch the old episodes and you don't have to worry about sitting there live for 3 or 4 hours or whatever if you don't have that time. But I don't have that time. And with all the games coming out, it's very difficult for me to commit to that long of a time period. I do it every once in a while, but it's pretty rare. So let's try to go through this. I will probably have to make these into smaller chunks over the next couple of days. But I would like people to be able to enjoy the last part of the game. Now, I won't cover the extras. The extras are actually really good. But you get this when you purchase the game and you complete all the routes, and then you get to find out the after stories and some of the stuff that happened even during the game from other people's perspective. So as always, I suggest that folks purchase the game for themselves, enjoy it for themselves. There's still a lot of content which I don't even cover, which will be something that you would want to cover in your own playthrough. So with that in mind, let's do it. I followed her outside. Call for that person. All right, I remembered it now. I went outside, ignored the monster, and shouted,
"Hitsujii-san! Hitsujii-san!"
Suddenly, the world turned gray, and that person appeared before me.
出たな、羊さん。いきなりバカの三聖将とはひどいじゃないか。
空気を読め。俺は黄金じゃねえ。あと、てめえここに絶対戻ってくんなっつったよな。
3回それぞれに意味があったのか。なるほど、なるほど。
どうすんだ？どうすんだよ。もうフォローできねえぞ、おい。
フォローは不要です。
は？
全部謎は解けました。
I said that with a serious tone.
いや、そう言われても。ああ、ほら見ろバケモン。なんかビーム的なやつを発射してんじゃねえか。
ありゃ町一つは吹き飛びましたね。
なんなのお前のその感じ。警告を破った以上、ありゃてめえの責任だぞ、こんちくしょう。
畜生に畜生と言われるなんて。
絶対殺す。てめえだけは俺が手ずからぶっ殺す。
事件の解決のためには時間が足りないんですよね。
はあ？
Resolving this incident wouldn't be easy. There were 3 things that had to be done. I had to stop the people of Yasumizu from killing each other in the feast. I had to deal with the master of the loop, who wanted the monster's resurrection. I had to deal with the Miguruma, the leaders of the feast. The first one would be the hardest. I had to prepare for it, for the big act.
羊さん、お願いです。巻き戻りが始まるよりできるだけ前に巻き戻してくれませんか？
だからもう二度はねえって言っただろうが。絶対気づかれるから戻すのは一度きりだってよ。
気づかれてもいいです。
は？
気づかれた場合のリスクってあなたがもう夢を操れなくなるってことですよね。つまりあなたも僕も巻き戻りに飲み込まれて記憶も維持できず ただ延々同じことを繰り返す。
そうだが。
つまり今回また羊さんの力で巻き戻る。羊さんが気づかれて夢に巻き込まれる。そこから死なずに全部解決すれば問題なくないですか？
問題は3つある。まず今のスターティングポイントから何日前まで戻せるかはわからねえ。次にその時にお前と俺の記憶を保持できるかは賭けになる。夢操作の瞬間に捕まらない保証はない。最後にマジで全部解決できるんだろうな。ざけんな。
ノーダメージクリアについて自信が揺らいだだけです。やってみせますよ。最悪ちょっとばかりダメージを受けるかもしれませんが、それならまあ確実です。
まあじゃ困んだよ。
じゃあ絶対を保証します。その代わりあなたの仕事にも絶対の保証をください。最低でも振り出しから丸1日は時間を稼いでください。あと記憶の保持は絶対確実にお願いします。一つでも取りこぼしたら僕の保証はなくなりますからね。
調子乗りやがって。どうにしたって巻き戻さねえとこの国が終わる。てめえ分かってて逃げ場をなくしただろ。
はい。実のところそのくらい腹をくくらないとこの黒幕は倒せないです。
失敗したらお前何がどうなっても殺すからな。
え
え。いいだろう。いでよ、100万匹分の羊の糞。
ちょっと待ってくださいよ。
うるせえ。てめえの勝手放題を100万トンの汚物の中でちった反省しながら死ね。
1頭あたり1トンの換算だとすると一体何ヶ月分の糞に相当するのか。
もう1億トンでいいわ。
ごめんなさい。
My apology went unheard. $5.10 Saturday. I woke up. This unpleasant awakening and the general discomfort in the room. It was that awful inn I'd visited.
お目覚めですか？
うわ、また中井が勝手に入ってきた。
At least it wasn't that needlessly energetic proprietress.
ゆうべはお楽しみでしたね。
もうだいぶ前のことだから思い出せない。そういうことにしよう。それがいい。思い出したくない。
はい。
いえ、なんでもないです。こっちの話です。
朝食はどうなさいますか？くっくっく。
絶対いいです。
連泊は
死んでもいいです。
寂しい。
今度個人的に恨みがあるやつを50人くらい合宿と称して来させるんで、ぜひもてなしてやってください。
超助かる。
チェックアウトで。
毎度あり。くっくっく。
I was with this place. Anyway, since I was staying here, that meant I checked the calendar on my phone and found out that it was Saturday, May 10th. I'd got lost at the mountain on the night of the 11th, and the mist would come at the evening of the 12th. and from what I could tell, I could remember everything. From what I recalled, this was Chimi's first restarting point. I was upset I couldn't tell her about this, but I hope she remembered everything too. Anyway, it looked like the sheep did what it had to do. Now I just had to fix the problem. Well, it'd work out. I wrote something down and left the inn. It was a list containing things I needed and things I had to do to solve the problem. I knew the 3 things I had to do pretty well. I had to stop the people of Yasumizu from killing each other in the feast. I had to deal with the master of the loop who wanted the monster's resurrection. And I had to deal with the Miguruma, the leaders of the feast. Things wouldn't be solved if at least one of them wasn't cleared, and unlike before, I only had one chance. It'd be pretty boring if I messed up after all this resolution. I'd just take it easy. Humming the song of the same name, I slowly parked my bike. After filling up the tank at the nearest place, I looked at the map again. The main road was packed now. I had to pick up the quickest route while avoiding it. I didn't know the lay of the land, but I knew my destination, so it wouldn't be hard to get there. From my current perspective, the me from months ago had abandoned all responsibility and just wandered aimlessly out of frustration and an abundance of free time. It was different now. I had a goal, a place I had to go to, and people who needed me. Thus, I didn't have to hesitate anymore. I had to hurry. To Fujiyoshi, the misty place once called the werewolf's village, the misty garden of God. All right. I went without any breaks, stopping only to refuel, and finally arrived. Honestly, I could barely stand. My thirst and hunger were way worse. I had to rest at least once. Seriously. My thoughts were dulled. I needed to raise my blood sugar. There was something I had to do before that.
シャーセー。
無事戻りましたよ、羊さん。
てめえ、一体何が、何言ってんだ。
いや、バレないと思ったんですか？あなたでしょ、羊さんの正体。
知らねえよ、帰れよ。
今の反応で言い逃れようって根性がすごいですが、まあいいんですけど。
なんでわかったんだよ。
あなたみたいに切れたファッションの女性はこの辺にいませんよ。せいぜい100円均一ファッションが限度です。あと、何の腹積もりもない人間だったら最初にあんな道を進めないでしょうよ。
そんなことかよ。ほとんど釣りじゃねえか。
すみません。それはともかく、何か食べるものをください。
廃棄前の弁当だったらタダで食わせてやるよ。
設定に忠実なんですね。
うるせえな。
おごりはありがたくいただくとして、少々面倒な仕入れを頼みたいんですが。
ここはコンビニだぞと一応は言うけど。
今さらでしょ。
たく、手のかかるやつだな。
これがメモです。
なんだこれ。ざけんな。いくらかかんだこんなもん。
無理ですか？
待ってろ。
ありがとうございます。あとは任せてください。
マジでこのまま行く気か？休んで行った方がいいんじゃねえのか？
そんな顔色悪く見えますか？僕。
むしろ一発決めたみてえに血色いいから逆に心配してんだ。踏ん張りどころでぽっきり折れんじゃねえぞ。
心配させてすみませんね。ところで僕はあなたたちに無言のうちにいいように利用されているんじゃないかという疑惑が急激に浮上したんですが、あれ？なぜ僕が謝っている？
気にすんな。
This little...
ま、いいんですけどね。楽しかったねで終わりさえすれば。ちなみに敵には見つかったんです？
少なくともあっちは異変には気づいた。 今は逃げ回ってるが、尻尾掴まれるのも時間の問題だ。
Their enemy was the mastermind, the creator of the loop. She was probably fighting her own battle already, one beyond my area of expertise.
まあ、せいぜい逃げ回ってやるよ。その間、あっちがお前の動きに気づくのをごまかせるかもしれねえ。
それは、とても助かります。よろしくお願いしますね。
こっちからも聞いていいか。
はい。ええ、もちろん。
いつまでこの茶番続くんだよ。
これっきりですよ。
まあ、生きて帰ったら、ぶん殴るのは勘弁してやる。
She used me for all I was worth, then said she'd punch me if I died. It was kind of amazing, really. I couldn't tell if she was one hell of a tsundere or just insane.
じゃ。
あ、
I hid my impression and just got back to my bike. The tons of stuff I had on me made a rustling sound. Through my dozens of times of being killed by Chiemi, I realized the path here so well that I was sick of it. I passed the small overpass, stopped my bike at the boulder, and took off my helmet. This might have been in Okiba too, a sign leading to Fujiyoshi and Yasumi. I placed the bike under a tree by the side of the road, placed what I had on the ground, and locked the bike. Then I hung the helmet's ring over the chain lock. After that, I opened the large mountaineering bag and took out whatever I needed right now. A headlamp. It was a bit big, but it fit well, shone bright, lasted long, and was resistant to water. And this was a mountaineering stick. I had already unpacked it in the store. I had to make sure I didn't get hurt. With my time becoming limited, I had to buy safety with money. I put on the backpack, putting the weight of all the stuff in it on my shoulders. I had to hurry. I'd wasted an entire hour just getting there. The distant sound of water became louder, and I finally made my way through the darkness and arrived at Sadanaga Rapids. I unhesitantly took off my pants, got in some loose trunks, and covered my feet in work tabby and climbing sandals. I placed my clothes in the waterproof bag, closed it, and put it on again. Through my fights with Chaimi, I found out that crossing Sadanaga was pretty dangerous. It'd be too pathetic if I fell and died here. I just couldn't let that happen. Anyway, it was time to go. All the rustling coming from the backpack felt like someone was laughing at me, saying that my worries were for nothing and that I was jumping at shadows. The cold stream of May numbed my skin, and it felt like it was trying to sap the warmth from my body. But I couldn't give up. If I did, this would all have been for nothing. Too many people would suffer. However, I wasn't motivated by some sort of justice, a sense that I had to protect them. I was just interested in the fact that this struggle would end up saving so many lives. It was an amazing trade. I also wanted to get even with some of the people and set myself free of this one-sided obligation. It was a selfish motivation, but that was exactly why I could give my all to it. I made it through the water and reached the other side. Naturally, there was no girl sawing off her shotgun here, or the flashlight she brought. Not this day, anyway. I arrived. Everything was as expected so far. No, I dropped the climbing stick in the water, so that wasn't great. I was within my margin for error, though. I had to calm down. Getting distracted by my mistakes would keep me from focusing. I looked at my phone. It was out of service range, of course. The time was 12:53 a.m. Pretty early. It worked out. I changed my clothes and shoes, then got off the cliff. Shit. My memory told me that the cliff was the most dangerous place, especially for a non-local like myself. I tried to be careful, obviously, but the other stick I used for climbing broke. I almost fell and reflexively used my hands, cutting them on the sharp stone. After making it up the cliff, I took out some whiskey, disinfected the wounds, and applied some first aid with a handkerchief. Thinking about what I'd do next, this wound was really painful. Maybe I had to loop back and... Of course, that line of thinking would become habitual. It was a good thing I'd over-prepared. I had only one life now, so I had to keep that in mind. With that slight shift in mentality, I got back to work. The first one of the 3 objectives. I had to stop the people of Yasumu from killing each other in the feast, and this was actually the hardest thing to do. Thus, I had to be both extremely careful and extra prepared. It would be proving a hypothesis. I was really pissed I hadn't thought of this sooner. I'd have loved to try it when resetting was still an option, but I was pretty confident I was right. If it wasn't here, it had to be in another place that I knew well, but this one seemed way more likely. I began preparing. I took out the 20-meter-long climbing rope. I had 5 spares, 100 meters, in the bag too. Of course, they took up the most space in the backpack. Freeing one of them, I tied it up as if I was preparing to hang someone in the feast. Passing one swivel ring through the rope, and hanging one on another climbing rope, I made a 40-meter rope. It was enough to cover a cliff this tall. With this, I now had a way down below the hanging pine. I fixed the stopper I'd already tied to my waist on the rope and created a lifeline for myself. At least I thought I did, but I had no experience with this. Still, I had to do it. Holding onto the rope, I began slowly going down. At first, I spun around, messed up while handling the stopper, slid down a few times, and was generally on the verge of getting myself killed. Eventually, I began stopping the spinning by touching the grass and branches on the cliff, and figured out how to rappel down slowly. Finding what I was looking for while climbing down was hard work. I felt water drop on my forehead and thought it was rain, only to realize it was actually blood from my hands, falling from the rope above me. That made me keenly aware of the pain and pressure from using my aching hands. It brought back my exhaustion, drowsiness, and muscle pain. It came with mental fatigue, and it couldn't have come at a worse time. Why was I doing this? The stupidity of it came back to me. What if this was all for nothing? Of course it was. Shit. Shit. Before I knew it, I was muttering some profanities. I felt like it would help me shake off the urge to cry, the pain, the misery, and the patheticness. Even so, it had to be there. The entrance had to be close. All of Yasumu had taken it for granted that people had to be hanged from the pine. That wasn't word of mouth or anything. It was an idea that came naturally, and it was with them their whole lives. That meant that this was pretty much the work of God. However, the idea of hanging one side of the rope on the tree and the other on the neck, then pushing the victim off, felt illogical. Were they doing it because the only cleanup they had to do was then cutting the rope? Well, during the feast, the corpse did fall to Saranaga every now and then. The lack of sound had to be God's doing, but that wasn't always the case. Some corpses had been caught on the cliff or fell on the riverbank. Whenever that happened, the body was not only not cleaned up, it became a very real bother, reeking and full of disease. If you just wanted to hang the victim, all you had to do was put the rope over a branch and pull it up. That was often done outside of here. If what mattered to them was dropping the body in Saranaga, then pushing them off was enough. Even if they were just focusing on making a kill certain, there weren't many times they could actually do this. I didn't think that a murder method that had only been done every several dozen or so years would become part of Yasumi's common soul. That seemed especially unlikely when, for the past 500 or so years, the locals only used the feast to control the local community. In that case, I imagine that the truth was different. The hanging wasn't for killing. It was to meet God. That unique way of praying, where they joined their hands and hid their faces, had to represent the remains of the lifeline they'd held before God. Thus, I'd surely arrive there if I went down. I'd believe that. Believe. Suddenly, something appeared. About midway down the cliff, on one of the links between the climbing rope, I found a large boulder sticking out from the bottom directly across from me. It was large enough to stand on. There were pine saplings on it, probably the children of the hanging pine. It looked suspicious. I had to get there. So I began swinging. Moving my legs and waist, I slowly created a swinging motion. The climbing rope made noise as I clung to it. The fear of it disconnecting and the fear of hitting the boulder struggled violently, but I managed to ignore them. When the swing was good enough, I waited for when it was over the boulder and stuck my legs out. I ended up having to grab onto the little pines, and my hands hurt like hell because of the prickliness, but that didn't matter now. I adjusted my headlamp and started examining the place more thoroughly. Bingo. Right behind all the growth here, there was an aged wooden torii.
よし。
I felt my vigor return, but I needed to press on. Behind the torii, there was an aged door sealed by decayed chains. I pulled on it, and the chains just broke, letting me go in. There was no way to hide a god, people of Fujiyoshi. Or that was no way to hide a god, people of Fujiyoshi. I opened the door wide, hunched down, and stuck my head into the hole. It was big enough for a crouching adult to pass through. It was a hole inside the cliff, angled slightly upward. It was an artificial place created by digging through the rock here. It was dry inside, probably due to the slope and the door protecting it. Alright. It wasn't exactly what I expected, but it was pretty damn close. Now I needed to secure a way to get here from the bottom, create a camp, and take away the route from the top. Thankfully, the young trees here were firmly planted and had large trunks, so I could easily tie a climbing rope around them and make my way down. With this and that, I successfully went down to the riverside below. Then I got back up to the hanging pine, got my stuff, and took care of the climbing rope. Some would come to the graveyard before the mist began, so they'd know something was up if they saw the rope. It'd all go to waste then. I had to hide until the mist came. That too was part of stopping the people of Yasumizu from killing each other in the mist. It was absolutely necessary for the cause. I began creating the riverside camp. Actually, I was on the rocky area above the riverbed. They couldn't see me from the top if I was here, and a flood due to rain wouldn't be a problem. Though it wasn't much of a camp, I just took out a blanket and lay down. After drinking some bottled water, I looked at my phone. It was past 3 on Sunday night. There would be rain in 24 hours, and Sadanaga could gain some water. I had to get everything done in the hole until then and prepare for the great act. But, well, it was enough for today.
疲れた。
I arrived at Yasumizu a day earlier than normal and confirmed the theory of mine. All that was left now was to enhance the proof and prepare the fakery. I could just go to sleep for now. I'd had to do things right after the night cleared, so I'd set a timer and just nap rather than sleep. There. Good night. I easily woke up to the sound of my alarm. Honestly, the hard sensation on my back made it nearly impossible to sleep. Even so, though I thought I'd wake up with the morning sun, it just didn't come here. The settlement was right between 2 mountains, so of course it wouldn't get much sunlight. I was still sleepy, but this was the fated day. I drank down the rest of the bottle and got some calories out of some sweetbread. First, I had to take care of my wounds. Surrounded by a dim light, I took off the handkerchief on my right arm, or my right hand, and treated the festering wound. I wanted to wash it off with Sadanaga's water, but I felt like the hole in the middle of the cliff might not have been the only reason why the stream was considered corrupted. I washed it off with water from a new bottle instead. Then I put some more disinfectant and a fresh bandage on it. It'd been messed up while I'd been climbing yesterday. I then grabbed my friend the headlamp and checked whether the stopper, a potential lifesaver, worked properly. With that, I was ready. Climbing up to the hole, I went inside and turned on the lamp. I then tried going up the upward slanted hill. At some distance, the hill started slanting down. It might have been done to prevent rainwater from flowing in. And the inside? It was like I had expected. There was a pile of fist-sized stones. I had to remove them all. It had to be possible. It'd been done by humans after all, and a whole 6 centuries ago too. Though I would feel kind of bad about it. What I was about to do was basically tomb raiding. But then I had a thought. Someone who was about to kill a god had no business talking about irreverence. To make the job easier, I took out a small shovel from the stuff I'd brought. I brought a collapsible bucket too, but it didn't look like I could use it. After thinking for a bit, I took out all the waterproof innings from the backpack, then transported the stones using the outer bag. After filling a bag with lots of rocks, I crawled outside and turned it upside down. That was effective and didn't put much strain on my hand's wound. Though hard labor in a tight space certainly wasn't easy. The lack of sleep and fatigue were getting to me, and I wasn't sure I was working fast enough. I wanted to go home after repeating this just 3 times. Even so, I'd done my best. I wanted to go back after all.
おいおい昔の人。一体何トン石ころ詰めるんだよ。いくら神を外に出さないためだからって、後々考古学者とかが掘り出すことくらい考えてから埋めてくれよな。って無理か。
I'd begun talking to myself more. Was it a sign of something dangerous, or was I safe as long as I recognized myself? It'd be bad if I started hearing the voice of God or Psycho Chaimi. I considered singing something, but stopped when I almost began singing prayer to Shinai. That felt like a one-way trip to madness. Weird. I didn't know if it was because of what I was thinking, but I began hearing auditory hallucinations. It was a crying girl.
戻り先は日曜の朝。メイコちゃんが迷ってくるところが新たなルーチンになっただけ。結局、糸口も見えなかった。
It came back to me, though it wasn't like I'd completely forgotten it. It just slipped my mind. This was the morning when Mako wandered in. What was I to do? If she cried here, someone who heard her would come over, surely. If that happened, they'd find my stuff and me as well. I'd look like a weirdo doing weird things, and with a girl at my side at that. What was up with that role? Was I some sort of kidnapper about to bury a child? I had to secure her myself. Anyway, mission start.
おーい。声をかけてみたはいいが、一体どうすればいいんだろう。誰？この辺りのものだよ。
パリのものさん？
This seemed familiar.
違う。名前は、Fusaishi Haruaki。
Fusaishi。
そうそう。Fusaishi Haruaki。
Fusayuki。
違う。
Fusayukiさん。
いいや、もうそれで。
Where did she get that U from anyway? Fusaiuki felt like some sort of an anonymous message board mascot's name.
お腹が空いたの？僕の顔をお食べよ。
Huh? That joke did not work on modern children?
食べない。美味しくない。
With my joke missing the mark so badly, I myself became flustered.
オーケー。食べ物を持ってるよ。こっちおいで。
ふさゆきさん、狼？
That reminded me that she was afraid of wolves that were completely unrelated to the ones in Fujiyoshi. Well, I wasn't one of those wolves either. But if I said that, it'd make things more complicated later.
僕はね、君が怖がってる狼じゃないんだ。
本当？
うん。そうさ、僕はいい狼なんだ。
みはみはみは。もいもいもい。
慌てて食べるからゆっくり食べな、メイコちゃん。ほら、 スポドリ。
それ私？
おっと、ごめん。君の名前は？
わからない。
Oh yeah, she didn't know her name or where she lived.
迷子の子猫ちゃんか。
猫さん？
いやいや、迷子といえば猫だなって。
私、猫さんじゃない。
そうだね。めいめい言うから羊さんかな。
羊さんは成功例よ。
Successes? What? And talking of sheep reminded me of her. What the hell is up with her?
名前わからないなら困ったな。
メイコでいいよ。
じゃあそう呼ぼうかな。
久幸さんはいい狼さん。
そうそう、いい狼さん。
悪い狼さんを殺す。
そうだ。いや違う。
What a scary thing to say. What kind of environment had she grown up in?
めいこちゃん、そんな殺すとか簡単に言っちゃダメだよ。
ダメ？
そう、殺すっていうのはとても怖いことだからね。
怖いのよくない。
いい子だ。だからボコボコにするとかにしておこうね。
ボコボコ？
そうそう。そのめいめい言うのは何なの？
家畜。
よくわかんないな。
変？
変というか、なんだろう、珍しい。
珍しい。
迷子といえば子猫ちゃんだからね。
私、迷子。
そうそう、迷子の子猫ちゃんとくれば大概の男はメロメロさ。
にゃーにゃーにゃーにゃ
猫といえばそうだね。
ー。
いいんだよ、無理しなくても。十分強ければ好きな自分でいられるさ。
難しい。
ごめんごめん。
The conversation sure went off the rails. I probably shouldn't have brought that up to a child. Would I also become a father to someone someday? What a scary thought.
お腹はいっぱいになったかい？よかった。ちょうどパンは全部なくなったところだった。って全部かよ。
ふさゆきさんの分。
ああ、大丈夫。僕はもう食べたから。
ごめんなさい。いい
めいこちゃんはいい子だな。
子？
そうそう。いい子は得だよ。いろんな悪いことをしても最後には許してもらえるからね。でもあんまりいい子すぎてもダメだぞ。神様に目をつけられちゃうからね。
良い子すぎてもダメ。
そうそう。ちょっぴり悪いいい子を目指しなさい。
ちょっぴり悪いいい子。
そうそう楽しいな。
わっはっは。
わっはっは。わーはっはっはっはっはっはっは。
うわ、
え、
Jamie popped out of nowhere. Sneaked in here, basically. She slipped on some rocks and was all wet. In her hand, there was a knife. Hold on.
ひょっとして絶望の果てに僕をぶっ殺しにかかってる状態のちえみちゃんですか？
うん。今回は思考を変えて、ブッシュブッシュ殺そうかなって。
殺すのよくない。
そうだぞ。よくないぞ。
何これ。というか、なんで春明さんが今いんの？というか、なんでメイコちゃんと？というか、 いきなり振り出しがまた戻って。
ね。
ちえみちゃん、落ち着いて。
あれ？そういえば。そっか。楽しい時は終わってたんだった。
She disinterestedly threw the knife into the Sananaga.
危ないでしょ。
どうせ今回も無駄になるんだろうし。
無駄にはならないね。
どうして？
これが最後のループだから。
Her eyebrows furrowed in confusion and worry.
ループ？
あー、ごめんね。ちょっと難しいお話があるんだ。
お姉ちゃんと？
うん。なぜ威嚇されているのだろ
女心の理解不足。
う。いや、そういうあれって、
いい。あっちで遊ぶ。
流されないように気をつけてね。
I really wanted to keep watch over her, but this was probably my last chance to meet with Chaimi. A good act needed some hired hands after all.
で、何故メイコちゃんに春明さんのどす黒い部分を危機として教え込んでたの？
あんまり楽しくて。いや、
引く。あまりに引いて正気に戻った。
それはともかく相談があるんだ。
相変わらずの軽やかさだね、春明さん。とりあえずこっちの疑問に答えてよ。最後のループって。
うん。諸事情あって、これで最後。ただし正確に言うと、最後のチャンス。これしくじったら、僕は多分君以外のみんな同様、巻き戻るたびに記憶がリセットされるようになる。君のことも忘れた。ただのバイク事故車の不妻子春明になるだろう。
待ってよ。それって、そんなの、嫌だよ。私、また一人ぼっちになっちゃうじゃん。
そうはならない。
どうして？
今回、全部解決するから。
引くわ。
なぜだ？
かっこつけすぎ。
そんなつもりは。
それはともかく、映画とかドラマの見過ぎじゃないかな。今まで何百回失敗してきた？そんな簡単にうまくいくわけないじゃん。
簡単じゃない。すでに嫌になるほど苦労してきた。というか、すべて失敗だったこれまでのループの総決算が今回なんだから。僕も君も、ゴールする資格と実力は十分に溜まっていると思わないか？
実力？
ああ、そうだ。決着には、君の力が絶対に必要になる。
ないよ。私に力とか。ただずっと無意味に巻き戻って、春明さんの邪魔をし続けてただけ。
根に持ってるな。元カノか、君は。
知恵み的には、そのつもりですけど。
Well, I couldn't deny that we were kind of close a bunch of deaths ago.
君には、あるじゃないか。何千、何万だかの繰り返しの果てに蓄積した、神様への恨み、怒りが。もちろん、今回、それも解決する。
え？
君の怒りと、決意でもって、この弾で、神様を撃ってくれ。
I took out some ammo and handed it to her.
いつ？どこで？誰の？
それは、その時が来ればわかる。しっかり散弾銃を切り詰めて、その時を待っててほしい。
待って待って！全然わからない！説明してよ！春明さん今ここで何してるの？
それは、言うわけにはいかない。
なんで？
それも、言うわけにはいかない。
After all, she was from Yasumizu. That made her an enemy. In fact, she was the enemy in this case. She didn't have to know that I needed help for my act. It'd be bad if she did. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to fulfill her role in this.
ただ、僕が言うのも白々しいかもしれないが、今回っきりでいい。信じてほしい。これが最後のお願いだ。
I looked into her eyes. She closed hers, thought about it for a bit, shook her head to shake something off, and nodded.
わかった。
All right. So, like I said, this is a very, very, very long ending. So, we are going to save it right here. We'll go through the next couple days on getting to the ending. And then, like I said, I'll leave the extra stuff for folks that purchase the game to enjoy all of the stuff that happens in the epilogue. And also insight into the game from other characters' points of view during your adventure. I like to say that if you haven't purchased this game, please do. It's one of the best visual novels out there. I actually would put it up there with things like Steins Gate and Clannad. It's not the most, technically good game. I mean, the voices are kind of tinny, and there's not as much animation as something like Steins Gate. But the story is completely enthralling. The characters are really good. All the twists and turns are excellent. And it really deserves a purchase. So, make sure to pick it up, whether it be on sale or full price. Make sure it's part of your library. It's really worth it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you at the next stream.